Insane.
Hey, stop right there. Don't move. What are you doing out here this late?
I'm closing my pharmacy. I'm the owner. My keys are in my hand.
I don't care what you are. Show me your papers.
It's ID proof. Now.
Okay, I can show you my license. It's inside on the wall.
Go inside.
Hands up.
The rain wasn't heavy just enough to turn streetlights into smeared gold. Outside a small pharmacy on the edge of town, a black pharmacist named Darius Coleman locked the front door like he had 1,000 nights before. The air smelled like wet concrete and cold metal. Then the cruiser rolled up. No sirens, no urgency, just slow authority. A rookie officer stepped out, hand already resting on his belt, eyes scanning Darius like a question that didn't want an answer. And in less than 3 minutes, a routine closing shift became a case that would cost the city $18 million. But before we begin, take a second to subscribe, because stories like this don't just expose one officer, they reveal a system. And if you've ever wondered how power turns ordinary moments into tragedy, you're about to see it, step by step. The last customer left 5 minutes before closing. The bell above the door, giving its small, tired ring like it was yawning. The pharmacy fell quiet again, quiet in a way that didn't feel empty but controlled. A place where order mattered, where everything had its place because people's lives depended on it. Darius Coleman moved through the aisles with the calm of a man who had done this for years, not rushing, not dragging it out, just steady like a heartbeat. The overhead lights washed the shelves in a pale, clinical glow, bottles lined up with their labels facing outward, barcode stickers neat, the faint smell of sanitizer mixed with cardboard and menthol. In a corner, a refrigerator hummed softly, guarding insulin and vaccines like a silent oath. He checked the register first. Counted the drawer twice, habit, not paranoia. Then he walked behind the counter and opened the controlled substances safe. A keypad beeped. The safe clicked. The kind of sound that makes you aware you're responsible for something serious. Darius didn't treat it casually. He never did. He took out the DEA logbook, thick, worn, corners bent from 1,000 turns. He recorded the end of day count, each number written with careful pressure, as if the ink itself could carry consequences. His license hung on the wall behind him in a simple frame. Not decorative. Proof of effort. Proof of years. Outside, the town was wet. It had rained earlier, leaving the sidewalks slick and reflective. Streetlights poured their glow onto the pavement like melted gold. Across the street, an old diner flickered with neon. A couple sat in silence inside, coffee mugs between them. In the distance, the low hiss of tires on wet road came and went like waves. Darius locked the safe, checked the temperature log. Then he armed the alarm system, 3 short beeps and 1 long one. The building accepted his command without complaint. He grabbed his coat and stepped outside. The air was cold enough to bite, but not enough to numb. He pulled the collar up, turned the key in the door, and paused for a second just to look at the street. It was almost beautiful in that late-night way, a quiet town, pretending nothing bad could happen here. Then the cruiser appeared. It didn't race in, it didn't announce itself. It just rolled slowly, tires whispering over wet asphalt, headlights sweeping across the storefront windows like searchlights. Darius felt it before he saw it fully, that strange shift in the air. Like the night itself stiffened. The patrol car stopped near the curb, not directly in front of the pharmacy, but close enough to make the message clear: we're here for you. Darius didn't move fast, he didn't move slow. He just stood there with his keys in his hand and waited, because sudden movements can become stories in somebody else's report. The driver's side door opened. Officer Evan Rourke stepped out like he was walking into a scene he already understood. He was young, mid-20s maybe. Fresh haircut, pressed uniform, belt heavy with equipment that made him look larger than he was. His hand hovered near his holster like it belonged there permanently. His eyes didn't meet Darius's eyes at first. They went to Darius's hands, then his waist, then his pockets. The officer's flashlight clicked on, though it wasn't dark enough to need it. The beam landed on Darius's chest, then his face, then dipped down and climbed back up again, an inspection pretending to be routine. Darius held still. "Evening," Darius said. Calm voice, neutral tone. Rourke took 2 steps closer. "You work here?" the officer asked, as if the sign reading Coleman Pharmacy wasn't hanging over Darius's head. "Yes, sir," Darius replied. "I'm the pharmacist, owner." Rourke's face didn't soften. If anything, it tightened, like the answer annoyed him, like certainty wasn't what he came for. "Need to see your ID." Darius blinked once, then nodded. "Sure," he said. "My ID's inside. I can grab it." Rourke's voice snapped, quick and sharp. "No, not inside." Right now, Darius paused not to challenge him, but to think. You could almost see the calculation behind his eyes, the survival math. I can show you my pharmacy license, he offered. It's on the wall. Or I can pull out my wallet slowly. Rourke stepped closer again, boots splashing lightly in a shallow puddle. Don't get smart with me. His tone wasn't just firm, it was personal. Just show me your papers. That word papers hung in the cold air like smoke. Darius kept his hands visible, both of them. I'm not trying to be smart, he said quietly. I'm trying to be safe. You're shining a light in my face. I'm just asking how you want me to do this. Rourke didn't answer the question. He only repeated the command, louder now. ID. Proof you belong here. Now. In the patrol car, the other officer silent until now shifted in his seat. You could hear it faintly through the windshield. A radio crackled once, then quieted. Darius took a slow breath. Not dramatic, controlled. Okay, he said. I'm gonna reach into my coat pocket. My wallet is there. I'm gonna take it out. Rourke's jaw flexed. Do it, he said. Darius moved carefully, fingers sliding into his pocket. His wallet came out like something fragile, but the moment it appeared, Rourke's body language changed, like a switch flipped. Hands up, the officer barked. Darius froze mid-motion, wallet in hand, confusion flashing across his face. What? He stuttered. And that's when you heard it. Inside the patrol car, a small, unmistakable sound. Snap. Latex gloves being pulled tight over skin. A soft noise, a quiet promise. Like the night had already decided where this was going. Darius raised his hands slowly, wallet still in one hand, and his voice stayed calm, but something in his eyes was no longer calm at all. It was the look of a man realizing he may not get to control this story, even though it was happening outside his own business. The cold didn't come from the rain anymore. It came from the space between Darius and the badge. Officer Evan Rourke stood close enough that Darius could smell the faint bite of peppermint gum under the officer's breath, like he chewed confidence into his mouth before stepping out of the cruiser. The flashlight beam stayed pinned to Darius's face, not because Evan needed light, but because light is control. It blinds. It forces you to squint. It makes you look guilty even when you're just trying to see. Darius's hands were up, palms open. He didn't argue. He didn't posture. He didn't even ask the obvious question, what did I do? Because he had learned, like many people learn, that sometimes the question itself becomes a trigger. The Bodycam beeped. A small, sharp sound like a door locking from the outside. Evan tilted his head, pressing his radio mic. Dispatch. I've got one outside Coleman Pharmacy. Possible match to earlier call. Darius turned his eyes slightly, calm but confused. Match to what call? Evan didn't answer him. He answered the camera. You're acting nervous, Evan said aloud, the kind of sentence officers say no for the person in front of them. But for the record, that will be played later. Keep your hands where I can see him. Darius swallowed once, slow. I'm nervous because you're shining a light in my face and ordering me around, he said. That seems normal. Evan's eyes narrowed, not at the logic, at the tone. Not because it was disrespectful, but because it was human, calm, educated, controlled. Those three things can feel like an insult to someone who came looking for obedience. The dispatch speaker crackled. Unit 12. Confirm. What's your location and subject description? And just like that, the town became a courtroom without a judge. Evan looked at Darius up and down again. Black male, mid-30s, dark coat, standing outside closed business. Darius blinked. The way you blink when your mind tries to understand something too absurd to accept. I'm standing outside my own business because I'm closing, he said. My ID is in my wallet. Evan snapped, dropped the wallet. Darius hesitated only because he needed clarity. You want me to drop it on the ground? Drop it, Evan repeated. Darius lowered it slowly and placed it on the wet pavement. Not dropped, placed. It looked almost ceremonial, like he was laying down proof of his own innocence for a system that didn't care. Evan stepped forward, boots splashing, and picked it up like it might bite him. You got anything on you? Evan asked. Just my phone and keys, Darius said. Evan didn't look convinced because he wasn't searching for truth. He was searching for a doorway. Dispatch crackled again. Unit 12. Earlier call was suspicious person near Cedar and 9th. Caller said individual attempted to enter vehicles. Suspect described as male, dark hoodie. Evan nodded like the words fed him. He turned to Darius. You been near Cedar and 9th tonight? Darius almost laughed, but didn't. No. I've been here. I've been working. Evan's jaw worked slowly, chewing the situation like meat that wouldn't break down. Step off the sidewalk, Evan ordered. Turn around. Darius's hands stayed up, but his body stiffened. Officer, am I being detained? Evan pointed the flashlight harder, as if pressure could replace probable cause. You are being stopped. Darius did argue the word choice. He just said the truth. Stopped for what? I haven't done anything. Evan's voice sharpened. You match the description. Darius stared. The description you just said was a hoodie. I am wearing a coat. And the call was Cedar and 9th. This is Maple. Evan ignored the correction because the correction was dangerous. Corrections are mirrors. Do you have ID that proves you work here? Evan demanded again. Darius nodded. Yes, my wallet, my license, everything. I'm happy to show it. Evan flipped through the wallet. Pulling the driver's license out, he read it slowly, like reading a foreign language. Darius Coleman. Darius said nothing. Evan held the ID up, flashlight glaring off the plastic. This could be fake. Darius's face did change, but something behind it did. A small crack in patience, a realization settling in. You can run it, Darius said. Calm. That's what you do. Evan paused, then spoke into the radio. Dispatch. Run the name. Darius Coleman. The silence that followed was heavy, like everyone, including the night, was waiting for the system to confirm what Darius already knew. Evan's partner stepped out of the passenger seat, now older, quieter, keeping distance. His eyes moved between Evan and Darius, reading the tension like a man who's seen this story before and hates where it goes. Darius spoke carefully. The way you speak when your safety depends on tone. Officer, you've checked my ID. I work here. This should be over. Evan leaned in. No, he said, not yet. He stepped closer, lowering his voice like a threat dressed as procedure. I am gonna need to search you. Darius took a slow breath. His voice stayed respectful. No, sir. I do not consent to a search. I am not resisting. I am just exercising my rights. That sentence, I do not consent, was gasoline. Evan's eyes flashed. So now you're refusing lawful orders. Darius kept his hands up. Refusing a search isn't resisting. That's Supreme Court level basic. The older officer shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the body cam, like he wanted to interrupt, but didn't want to betray his own uniform. Evan stepped back and lifted his radio again. Requesting supervisor, he said. Voice clipped. Possible non-compliant subject. Darius looked at him carefully. Non-compliant? I've done everything you asked. Evan turned slightly toward the camera, toward the record, toward the audience he knew would exist later. Subject is agitated. Evan narrated louder now. Refusing commands. Unknown intent. Officer safety concern. Darius stared at him in disbelief. The kind that tastes like metal in your mouth. That's not true, Darius said softly. You're making that up. Evan didn't respond like a man challenged. He responded like a man threatened. Turn around, Evan barked. Hands behind your back. Darius didn't move, not because he wanted a fight, but because he was trying to understand how a calm conversation became handcuffs. Officer, what are you arresting me for? Darius asked. Evan answered without looking at him. Obstruction. The word fell like a hammer, heavy, casual, and wrong. Across the street, the diner door opened. Two customers stepped out under the awning, stopping mid-step as they saw the lights, the stance, the tension. Their faces didn't show excitement. They showed recognition, the kind that comes when you know a moment is about to turn into something you'll never forget. Evan pulled the cuffs out, metal glinting under streetlight, and advanced. Darius exhaled slowly, a quiet surrender, not of guilt, but of survival. And then the cuffs closed around his wrists fast, too tight, like punishment before proof. Darius flinched. Evan didn't. The handcuffs didn't just tighten around Darius's wrists. They tightened around the entire night. Metal against skin, cold against warm, authority against breath. Officer Evan Rourke marched him toward the door like he'd already won something, like the story had already been written and Darius was just a prop moving through it. The older officer followed at a cautious distance, his face unreadable, but his pace hesitant, as if every step cost him a piece of conscience. Darius's keys were still in the lock. Officer, my alarm. Darius started, turning his head slightly. His voice was calm, but urgent. If you open that door without disarming it, it'll trigger. Evan ignored him. The officer's gloved hand reached past Darius and yanked the door open. The bell above the entrance rang bright and innocent like it hadn't learned fear yet. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the alarm began to scream. Not a loud dramatic siren, something worse. A sharp electronic wail, steady and unforgiving. The kind of sound that makes your heart speed up because your body thinks danger is inside the walls. Evan flinched. His eyes darted, not at Darius, but at the ceiling corner's cameras, sensors, witnesses he couldn't control. Turn around, Evan barked again, as if shouting could turn chaos into order. Darius grimaced. I told you. You need to disarm. Evan shoved him forward. And suddenly Darius was inside his own pharmacy, not as a pharmacist, not as the man who built this place, but as a suspect being dragged across clean tile. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly, sterile and cold. That buzzing felt like judgment, like the building itself was watching, powerless. The counter was inches away. The shelves were close enough that Darius could see familiar labels: antibiotic, pain relief, allergy medicine, insulin needles, locked behind glass. All the quiet tools of survival lined up in perfect order. And now, there was disorder in the middle of it. Evan pushed Darius toward the counter. Stop resisting, Evan said. Darius's face tightened. I'm not resisting. I'm cuffed. That sentence should have ended it. It didn't. Because the situation wasn't about resistance. It was about control. Evan forced Darius's shoulders down, trying to bend him forward like breaking a branch. Darius stumbled, his hip slamming against the counter edge. A plastic tray toppled. Pill bottles rattled and rolled small, harmless sounds that suddenly felt like gunshots in the tension. A receipt printer beeped once, still running its end-of-day cycle like nothing was happening. That tiny, polite beep felt almost insulting, like reality, continuing while dignity collapsed. Evan's partner finally spoke. His voice was low, cautious. Evan, slow down. Evan didn't look at him. He's resisting. The older officer stared at Darius's cuffed hands. The truth was visible. It was physical. It was undeniable. But truth doesn't always win fast enough. Darius inhaled, fighting panic like a man fighting sleep behind the wheel. Officer, I'm telling you again, I'm not a threat. Please. Evan snapped back. Loud for the body cam. Quit talking and comply. Then Evan grabbed Darius's arm and drove him down. The motion was sudden. Heavy, dirty. Darius hit the pharmacy floor hard, his cheek grazing tile, shoulder twisting as the cuffs pulled his arms behind him. Pain flashed sharp and white through his body, so clean it almost felt unreal. For a moment Darius didn't say anything. Just a breath. Just a grunt. The kind of sound a man makes when he's trying not to give his pain to someone who doesn't deserve it. Evan's knee pressed into Darius's back, not to restrain, to dominate. The older officer's eyes widened. Evan watched the pressure. Evan yelled, back up. In the background, the alarm screamed, unbroken, constant. Outside, people had begun to gather. The diner customers, a passing driver slowing down, someone lifting a phone toward the glass like they were filming a storm. Darius tried to turn his head. Please, he said, voice tighter now. You are hurting me. Evan leaned closer. The camera caught the angle. A young officer with too much adrenaline and too little patience. Then stop resisting, Evan said again, like a ritual phrase. Darius let out a broken breath. I can't move. I'm cuffed. That line should have landed. Instead, Evan shifted his weight knee, digging deeper. Darius's voice cracked for the first time, not into screaming, into something worse, honesty. Officer, I can't breathe right. The older officer stiffened. That phrase hit policy, training, protocol, because every academy in America drills this into rookies now, at least on paper. Positional asphyxia. Pressure on the back, roll the subject. Monitor breathing. The older officer stepped forward louder now. Evan, roll him on his side. You're compressing his chest. Evan snapped his head like an animal being challenged. He's fine. Darius inhaled again, ragged. The fluorescent lights hummed above them, hard and indifferent. Then a third voice came from the doorway. Unit 12. What's going on? A second backup officer arrived, stepping into the pharmacy like he walked into a crime scene. His eyes scanned the room and paused on Darius, pinned to the floor. Pinned. Not fighting. Pinned. The new officer hesitated, not because he didn't know what to do, but because he knew too much. He knew how this looks. He knew how this ends. He knew what the public hears once a report is written. He spoke quietly. He doesn't look like he's resisting. Evan barked back. He was reaching. He tried to pull away. Darius let out a harsh exhale. That's not true. Evan leaned in closer, anger coming out in his voice like heat. Shut up. The words were small, but they carried the weight of a system. And then something happened that changed the room. Darius's cheek pressed against the tile, and he saw it his own reflection in the shiny floor, blurry and broken. A man in cuffs, on the ground, inside the place, where he used to stand tall behind the counter. That realization cracked his discipline. The calm tone was gone. Not replaced with rage, replaced with pain. My shoulder, he cried, voice sharp now. You're tearing my shoulder. Evan didn't move off. He only tightened the hold. And for the first time, the older officer stepped in, not physically yet, but morally. Evan, he said, voice hard. Enough. Evan's radio crackled. Dispatch, supervisor is en route. 8 minutes, 8 minutes, a long time to be on the floor, a long time to bleed, a long time to survive. Darius's breathing turned shallow. His eyes watered not from crying, but from pressure and fear and humiliation mixing together into something the body can't hide. Then Evan, still pressing down, lifted his radio and began speaking like the night was already his to control. Dispatch, he said. Subject became aggressive. Attempted to reach into pockets, had to use force. The words went out into the system, into record, into history. Before anyone could correct them, before anyone could stop him. And beside the counter, under buzzing fluorescent light, Darius's lips split against the tile. A line of blood appeared. Thin. Red. Unignorable. By morning, the rain had stopped. But the town didn't feel clean. It felt rinsed, like the streets had been washed. But the stain stayed. Darius Coleman woke up to the dull ache of injury that doesn't belong in sleep. His right shoulder throbbed like a drumbeat. His wrists burned where metal had kissed them too hard. A nurse had cleaned the blood from his lip the night before, but the split still tugged when he tried to speak. Every movement reminded him. The body remembers what the mind tries to file away. He lay in a hospital bed with a paper-thin blanket and an IV drip ticking quietly beside him like a metronome. The room smelled like antiseptic and quiet fear. His phone buzzed on the tray table, call after call. After call, numbers he didn't know, messages he wasn't ready to open. His sister sat in the corner, hands folded tight, eyes red but dry now. She looked at him like she was afraid to blink, like if she blinked the story might continue without her consent. What did they say you did? She asked softly. Darius stared at the ceiling. The fluorescent light above him was different from the pharmacy's, but it carried the same cold, indifferent hum. They said I resisted, he whispered. And even saying it felt like swallowing glass. That same morning the department statement dropped. Not shouted, not dramatic. Professionally written, carefully cold. A press release posted on the official city website, then echoed through local news stations in familiar language that sounded lawful even when it wasn't truthful. Officers responded to a suspicious person call. The subject became non-compliant. Officer safety required physical control. No serious injuries reported. There was a tone to it, an implication without evidence. We did what we had to do. In the squad room, Officer Evan Rourke read the statement on his phone and felt something like relief. Not peace relief. The kind you feel when your parents believe your lie before anyone checks the truth. He leaned back in his chair. His uniform smelled faintly of sweat and rain. Still holding the night, like it didn't want to leave his fabric. They've got you, his partner said quietly, not meeting his eyes. Evan smirked. I told you. It's procedure. But his partner didn't smirk back. Because procedure can cover you. Or bury you. The first video leaked 2 hours later. It didn't come from the department. It came from inside. Bodycam footage posted anonymously, cropped, shaky, audio raw, not edited for narrative, just released like a confession. And it spread like fire. At first it was local, a town Facebook group, a tweet, a repost, a slow climb. Then it went statewide, then national. Because the video didn't contain theory. It didn't contain interpretation. It contained a man in cuffs being driven down onto a pharmacy floor. The footage showed Darius's hands up. His wallet placed carefully on the ground. His voice calm, logical, respectful. It showed the moment Evan said papers, and it showed the most damning detail of all, something reports can never defeat. Darius wasn't threatening anyone. The second video arrived after sunset. This one was from across the street. A customer, a diner witness, a phone held in trembling hands. A sideways angle through glass, capturing the pharmacy's front windows like a stage. You couldn't hear every word, but you could see the shape of violence. Evan's silhouette over Darius. The knee. The push. Darius's head turning sideways against tile. And then just for a second blood. That thin red line that makes the world stop pretending. The caption on the upload read, "This is what they did to our pharmacist. Not black man, not suspect, not criminal, our pharmacist." In one sentence, the town claimed him. By the next day, people were outside Coleman Pharmacy with candles. The building was still closed, crime tape fluttering like a cruel decoration. The pharmacy sign glowed above them, Coleman Pharmacy, like it had become a monument overnight. Someone placed flowers by the door. Someone taped up a handwritten note, "He saved my mom's life." A veteran stood in the crowd and spoke without a microphone, voice rough and sincere. "This man filled my prescriptions when I couldn't afford them," he said. "He didn't ask questions, he just helped." A young mother wiped her face. "My son's asthma meds, he stayed late just so we wouldn't go without." The people weren't protesting a stranger anymore. They were defending a man they trusted. That's what made it dangerous. When a community watches someone they love get treated like a threat, the anger turns pure. It stops being political. It becomes personal. On day 3, the city council meeting overflowed. The chamber smelled of wet coats, sweat, and tension. Folding chairs lined the hallways. Reporters leaned against walls, notebooks ready, cameras hungry. On the stage, council members sat stiff-backed like jurors. The police chief looked exhausted, tie loosened, jaw tight. The mayor kept glancing at her phone like she was tracking a wildfire map. Residents stood one by one to speak. Some cried, some shouted. Some simply read printed statements with shaking hands. Then a man in a gray suit approached the microphone. He didn't look like an activist. He didn't look like a performer. He looked like quiet danger. His name was Malcolm Reyes, civil rights attorney, former federal clerk. Known for one thing. He didn't win cases with emotion. He won them with precision. He spoke calmly. His voice wasn't loud, but it reached the room like a blade. "I've reviewed the press release," Reyes said. "I've reviewed the bodycam. I've reviewed the cell phone angle." He paused, letting silence sharpen. "Your department claims Mr. Coleman was non-compliant," he continued. "But your own footage shows compliance. Your statement claims no serious injury. Yet emergency room records show trauma." He flipped a folder open like a surgeon preparing tools. "And here," he said, "your timeline collapses." He began reading timestamps, not opinions, not feelings, numbers. Bodycam activation, 22:41:8. First physical contact, 2002:43:32. Handcuffs applied, 22:44:11. Dispatch says supervisor requested at 22:46. But the report claims the supervisor was requested immediately. He looked up. "That's not a typo," he said gently. "That's narrative construction." The room went still. The chief blinked slowly, like a man realizing he was no longer steering the ship. Reyes finished with the sentence that changed everything. "This is not just misconduct," he said. "This is a civil rights violation under federal law, and it will be treated as such." In the precinct, Evan watched clips of the council meeting on his phone. His smirk was gone. A thin line of sweat formed at his hairline. His knee bounced under the table. His partner stood in the doorway, expression hard. "Should have rolled him," he muttered. Evan snapped back. He was resisting. His partner didn't blink. No, he wasn't. That's when Evan realized it wasn't just the public. Even inside, the story was changing. 2 days later, Internal Affairs called. Not shouted, not threatening, just procedural, cold. Efficient. Evan entered the interview room, a small box with one table, 2 chairs, and a camera in the corner that never blinked. The air smelled like old carpet and paperwork. A lieutenant sat across from him, face blank. "Officer Rourke," the lieutenant said, voice flat as stone. "You are now the subject of an internal investigation." Evan swallowed. "This investigation concerns use of force, accuracy of reporting, and potential policy violation." Evan's mouth opened. "Sir." The lieutenant raised a hand, stopping the words before they became excuses. "We'll be collecting your body cam," he said. "Your duty weapon will be secured. You are placed on administrative leave effective immediately." Evan stared, stunned. "What?" The department said. The lieutenant didn't react. His face didn't change. His voice didn't soften. "Officer," he said, "understand this clearly." He leaned forward just slightly. "The department's priority is the department. A beat. And right now, they may not protect you." The courtroom didn't feel like justice. It felt like air conditioning and old wood and people trying not to show their hearts. The kind of place where pain is translated into language, then language is measured like currency. Darius Coleman sat at the plaintiff's table in a suit that didn't quite feel like his skin. The fabric was fine, pressed, respectful, but he still felt exposed, like everyone could see the bruises under it. His shoulder had healed enough to move again, but not enough to forget. Nerve damage doesn't announce itself loudly. It whispers numbness, tingling, a sharp sting at odd angles, the sensation that something inside you never returned to where it belonged. Every time he adjusted his arm, his face stayed neutral, but his eyes tightened, just slightly, like they were holding back a memory. Behind him, benches filled with quiet bodies, friends, community members. A few strangers who had followed the story like it was weather until it became history. Across the aisle, the city's attorneys sat in identical dark suits with identical calm. Their binders were stacked neatly. Their expressions had been trained to look like they cared, without actually carrying anything. At the defense table, Officer Evan Rourke sat smaller than he used to seem. No patrol belt, no swagger, no streetlight reflecting off badges and ego. Just a man in a plain suit with a tie knotted too tight, like he was trying to choke himself into appearing disciplined. His jaw clenched as the bailiff called the room to order. When the judge entered, everybody stood. Even Evan, even Darius. That's how court works. It demands respect from the innocent and the guilty equally because procedure doesn't have feelings. The first week wasn't dramatic. It was slow, surgical, like a blade being sharpened. Depositions were read into record. Dispatch recordings played. Policies referenced. Reports compared. Medical documentation unfolded in pages that smelled like printer ink and consequence. Malcolm Reyes, the attorney, moved through the trial like he had all the time in the world. He wasn't loud. He wasn't theatrical. He spoke with the calm confidence of a man who had already done the math. He started with the timeline, because timelines don't lie unless someone edits them. A screen displayed Bodycam timestamps. 22:41:8, Reyes said, voice steady. Bodycam begins. Subject Mr. Coleman, hands visible. The courtroom watched. Darius's face appeared on the screen, lit by a flashlight beam. Calm, cooperative. Reyes paused like a filmmaker letting a scene breathe. Then he played dispatch audio. A dispatcher's voice crackled through speakers. Earlier call was suspicious person near Cedar and 9th. Reyes turned, eyes on Evan. Officer Rourke, he asked quietly, do you hear Cedar and 9th? Evan didn't answer at first. The judge looked at him. Evan cleared his throat. Yes. Reyes nodded as if confirming something obvious. And yet, he continued, your report places Mr. Coleman as a match to that description. He held up a printed copy of Evan's written statement like it was a relic of arrogance. The call was about someone trying car door handles. Mr. Coleman was closing his pharmacy. Reyes didn't need emotion. The contradiction created its own. The second week brought expert testimony. A use of force instructor testified about departmental protocols policy, written in clean fonts, signed by chiefs who promised public safety. He explained investigatory detention. He explained that refusing consent to a search is not, by itself, probable cause. He explained the duty of de-escalation. Then Reyes asked a question that turned the room cold. In your profession, opinion, was the force used on Mr. Coleman consistent with policy? The expert hesitated, the way professionals hesitate when truth is expensive. No, he said finally, it was not. Darius looked down at the table. Not because he was ashamed, because he was trying to hold himself together. Because vindication hurts too when it's late. Reyes played the moment. Evan's knee pressed into Darius's back. The video audio caught Darius's strained voice. I can't breathe right. Reyes didn't dramatize it. He didn't pause to preach. He simply asked the expert, what does the officer do when a restrained subject reports breathing difficulty? The expert answered, almost like reciting doctrine, you reduce pressure. Roll to recovery position. Monitor breathing. Call medical. Reyes nodded slowly. And did Officer Rourke do that? No. The courtroom fell into a silence that had weight. The kind of silence that feels like a door closing. On cross-examination, the city's attorney tried to salvage the narrative. You agree officers face threats, unpredictable threats during stops? Yes, the expert admitted. So isn't it possible Mr. Coleman posed a threat? Reyes didn't object. He allowed the question to hang, because he understood something deeper. You don't win by rushing. You win by letting the jury feel the absurdity. The expert answered carefully. In this video, Mr. Coleman's hands are visible. He is compliant. A threat is not supported by the evidence. The city's attorney tried again. Isn't it true officers must make split-second decisions? Reyes leaned back, calm, waiting. The expert replied, yes, a beat. Those decisions still have to be lawful. When Darius testified, he didn't cry, he didn't perform pain, he just told the truth. And the truth sounded almost unbearable when spoken calmly. He described the pharmacy, his routines, his responsibilities, the DA logs, the safe. He described how he had stayed late for patients in emergencies, how he had delivered medicine to elderly neighbors when they couldn't drive, how he kept naloxone behind the counter because he'd seen overdoses up close and refused to let anyone die if he could help it. Then he described the night. The officer asked me for papers, Darius said quietly, and I realized he wasn't asking because he needed proof. He was asking because he wanted me to know I was powerless. The words didn't sound angry. They sounded exhausted. Reyes walked him gently through the injuries. Darius lifted his arm and winced, just slightly. The jury saw it. Permanent nerve damage, Darius said. That's what the doctor called it. He swallowed. But honestly, he added, voice lower now, the nerve damage isn't the worst part. Reyes asked softly, what is? Darius looked out at the room. At night, he said, I still hear the alarm, and I still smell the floor. Evan didn't look at him. He stared down, lips pressed hard, as if refusing eye contact could reduce responsibility. But the trial did what trials do best when truth is patient. It removed the mask slowly. On week 4, Reyes played the dispatch audio again. Then he played Evan's radio call. Subject became aggressive. Attempted to reach into pockets, had to use force. Reyes paused the video. The screen froze on Darius, cuffed, hands pinned. Ladies and gentlemen, Reyes said, voice calm as steel. How does a handcuffed man reach into his pockets? No shouting, no theatrics. Just a single question that destroyed a story. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. Outside the courtroom, the hallway smelled like coffee and sweat and quiet praying. People avoided eye contact, every little sound, doors clicking, a heel tapping felt amplified. Darius sat with his hands clasped, staring at nothing. Reyes stood nearby, silent. When the bailiff finally called everyone back, the courtroom rose again like a tide. The foreperson held a paper with both hands, knuckles pale. The judge asked, has the jury reached a verdict? Yes, the foreperson said. Darius didn't breathe. Evan's foot bounced once, then stopped. The foreperson read the numbers like they were weather coming on the count of excessive force and civil rights violations we find for the plaintiff. A pause. We award damages in the amount of, the room held its breath, $18 million. There were no cheers, no victory shout, just silence, heavy, exhausted justice. Darius closed his eyes for a moment, not because he was happy, but because his body finally allowed itself to accept the truth as official. And Evan stared forward, as if the number had physically struck him. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like what happens when authority meets accountability for the first time.